Welcome to the Private Practice Startup, where we inspire you from startup to mastery. We chat with entrepreneurs, experts in the mental health and business arenas, and successful private practitioners to give you the tools needed to make your dream practice a reality. Visit theprivatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, free trainings, and so much more. Here are your hosts, Dr. Kate Campbell and Katie Lemieux.
Hey there, Startup Nation. Welcome back to another episode of the Private Practice Startup Podcast. So I'm flying solo today, actually, and so this is one of your hosts, Katie Lemieux, and this one is a 3 times a charm podcast. So we actually have Jessica Richardson today with us all the way from the Tampa area, and we had attempted to do this podcast 2 times already. So the first time Jessica was sick, the second time it was on Friday the 13th, and the tech gods were playing some jokes on us. We did option A, B, C, D, maybe even E, and none of it worked. So here we are today. And then the other thing that's happening is, unfortunately, Kate's son is really sick today. So she had to take him to the doctor during our time. But that's the beauty of being able to have a dual partnership, right? Is that you guys get to divide and conquer. So as you always notice, sometimes I will talk in we or us, and that's just because it's usually Kate and I talking. So if I'm talking about we or us, you guys know just to roll with it. But last week we had an awesome show, and it was a lot of fun too. And so this is where we did a reverse interview with Joe Sanak on why S&M is essential for your business. But you're wondering, what are they going to talk about? So I guess you'll have to just tune in to make sure that you listened to that if you haven't already. And so we wanted to say thanks for listening. So if you're a first-time guest, we're rolling out the red carpet, giving you a huge hug and saying, welcome to the Startup Nation family. You are officially part of us. And also to have more interaction with us, you can find us on Facebook. Look for the Private Practice Startup, ask to be part of our group. And then you'll be able to interact with thousands of clinicians across the globe, continuing to build your practice. And if you're a first-time guest, we have a gift for you. That's our A to G cheat sheet, Essentials for Building and Growing Your Dream Practice. You can find that at privatepracticestartup.com. Head over to the resources tab and you will find it there, amongst a bunch of other fantastic things. So that's all yours for the picking. So we're really excited about today's guest. And Jessica, we've been in connection probably, I'm going to say maybe over the last 2 years or so. And Jessica has a really cool, interesting story. She started out as an intern in private practice. So she's going to be sharing her journey. And so this podcast is great for both an intern or someone starting private practice. So we're going to be talking about maybe the illusion of private practice, the dream of private practice, some of the obstacles, and some things that you guys can do to get started. But before we do that, our sponsor today is the Private Practice Startup, the attorney-approved private practice paperwork. So if you guys need paperwork, which you all do, you want to definitely go ahead and check out ours. We actually spent hundreds of hours, like literally hundreds of hours, combing through the laws, the ethics, the rules, and paid several attorneys thousands of dollars. So you guys don't have to. If you're in private practice, you definitely need private practice paperwork. Don't do what we did. We used the hand-me-down paperwork until we realized it was leaving us open to major liability and risk. You want to make sure that you and your practice are protected so you can continue to do the work that you love. If you want to check out our paperwork, go over to privatepracticestartup.com. You'll find the shop tab. There you can head over to the a la carte area. You'll notice that we'll have peak package, which is all the forms that you need for your practice, as well as the base package, which would be the forms that you need to get started to see an initial client. And then we have a la carte options. So maybe you're already in practice and you need a few forms or updated forms, or maybe you're starting online counseling and you need that online counseling consent. All of that stuff is there for you. So without further ado, I want to introduce Jessica. Hey, Jessica.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you guys for having me. And third time is a charm, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Of course. So we're going to say right now, so I'm actually in my guest bedroom today, and Jessica's actually in her house, in her kitchen, literally. And so both of our dogs are locked away, hoping that they're not going to make noise. But if you hear some whining or barking, that's just what's going on. Jessica, what are your dogs' names?
Coda and Nyla. And yes, they are from Disney movies. So when you're in Orlando, that's kind of like the thing. So they are small little Dachshunds, little weenie dogs.
So what movies are those from?
Nyla is from Lion King, and
Right.
I've been told that we say it wrong. It's supposed to be Nala.
Gotcha.
And then Coda is from Brother Bears.
I don't know that one.
He looks like a little teddy bear. He's a long-haired Dachshund, so sometimes he's really fluffy.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, we'll hope that the sound of Mom's voice is enough to soothe them and throughout our podcast. So we're going to be talking about 5 ways interns or supervisees, or if you're new to private practice, can start a private practice. So, of course, I want to know, how did you decide, number one, how did you decide to become a therapist?
I think it kind of like that cliche topic or that answer. We all go into it for a reason. There were some stresses and anxieties that were happening during my undergrad with family. And at that time I was experiencing some anxiety myself, and I didn't know what it was. So I went through the whole typical, go to the medical doctor, get EKG, experience all of this stuff. And then they come back, nothing's wrong with you. And then I fell into like a Psych 101 class and realized, oh, it's anxiety. So I kind of went on this journey of, I don't want anybody else to kind of experience this and feel like they're struggling. And I definitely want to help others with anxiety. So that was my kind of kickstart to it.
Gotcha. So like how you say you fell into Psych 101, was it like all the other classes were closed and Psych 101 was like the last one open and you're like, I guess I have to take it?
I really don't remember. I took it as an elective. I really don't remember. It was probably like, you can have those different tech classes, those hands-on stuff. And I was like, I want to take something that I can just read and type and be done with it. So it wasn't, I was actually going into law at the time. My undergrad was going to be in the legal field. So totally not even psychology.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, and then how did you decide to jump in a private practice as an intern? That's like a major feat and requires a lot of bravery. It's a lot.
Yeah. And it was a lot of unexpected. Like you said, it was, as an intern, you hear so many people just wait until you're licensed. Don't do it. Go to agency work. Don't do it. And at the time I was working at a law firm, my last year of grad school. Well, I was at the law firm for 8 years, so undergrad and grad school. And then my last year of grad school, you kind of start questioning, what am I going to do next? What's my next steps? What does this look like? How long will it take me to get to where I want to go?
Yeah.
In my undergrad, I knew I wanted to work with college students with anxiety. So I knew that was my niche. When I started looking at jobs and job postings for interns right out of grad school, it was children, it was families, it was very little kids, and that wasn't the area I wanted to specialize in. So I started, overturning some things, and I'm like, well, if it's not out there for me to specialize in that area during my internship, then what's the purpose of my internship? If that's what I want to get specialized in, I don't want to be a generalist. Like, I know the direction I want to go. So I started asking questions about how to start private practice as an intern. I started feeling like a lot of the doors were being closed. A lot of negativity. Don't do it. You're not allowed. Then you look up the laws and rules, and it was not black and white. It wasn't, yes, you can, no, you can't. Emailing back and forth between the board. And then I just decided, you know what? It's gray. There's a whole bunch of gray area. It's gray for a reason. So if it's gray, you just do what you have to do legally to protect yourself within the bounds of our license. Make sure you have supervision. Make sure you are, closing all the holes legally in that aspect, and just go for it. Because there's just too much gray area. There's nothing that says, no, you absolutely can't. And that was all I needed. The fact that there wasn't a no, I went for it. And that's where Beginning Counselors of Florida was born. So.
That's awesome. And I'm sure working in law helped that.
Yeah.
Looking for the gray zone.
Yep. And I think that, when you're in school, you think, what am I doing? I'm changing my degree so many times. I'm so thankful that I had that 8 years of legal background, even though it wasn't in mental health. It really did help a lot of just trying to get started in private practice.
That's great. It's funny. I always tell the story that in my entire college career, I've only read 2 books. This is a true story. And back in 2015, I went through a year of business coaching, and my business coach had said to me, or I had said to him, I said, hey, I'm ready. I'm excited. I'm excited for that activity you're going to give me. And he's like, oh, did you read the book I gave you? I was like, no, I'm not a reader. He's like, no activity. And I was like, oh, and literally he gave me this 60-page book, and I hated reading so much that I literally sat out on my patio, set my phone for 10 minutes, and I read 10 minutes until I finished the book. But I always loved to read law and contracts, because I always loved to find the loopholes, and that's what you're talking about, is the gray zone. And so that's a lot of fun. And so, of course, for those of you who are listening, is that Jessica and I are actually in the state of Florida. So obviously, each state has their own laws. And so if you're an intern, an unlicensed person getting into practice, you want to make sure you double check with your state laws first about what the contingencies are and criteria for unlicensed folks. And then if you're licensed, it's a different story. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So share when you thought about I love that you had a niche. Now, did you know you needed to niche, or you're just saying, no, this is just what I wanted to do?
I had no idea that we needed to niche, or that was even an option. It was just something this is what I want to do. I want to find all of the resources and trainings on this culture, this population between 18 and 30, 35. And that's the area I want to specialize in. I had no idea that we needed to niche until after doing, more research and realizing, oh, well, this is a thing that you do in private practice. So,
well, in any business to be successful, right?
Right.
Yeah. I would say Frito-Lay, they make chips. That's all they make. Yep. You know what I mean? They don't make other things. They don't venture into other worlds. They might create another business, but yeah. So it's super important. So what, I always want to know, what was, before you stepped into private practice, what was the dream? How did you perceive it was going to be?
I thought there was going to be, so I came from a law firm, right? And in my mind, that was a practice, a practicing law firm. And we were in a huge building downtown Orlando, 14 floors, and 3 of them were ours in the practice. So there were associate attorneys, there were seasoned attorneys, there were shareholders, and I just assumed, oh, that's what private practice is going to be like as a counselor. And because I had actually my own therapist at the time, had a similar, she was in a very similar building. There was multiple offices. They had the reception area. It felt very similar to the law firm. So my perception of private practice was maybe swayed.
Sounds very luxurious.
Yeah. And I had no idea, okay, most private practices do not feel like doctor's offices or law firms until I walked across the stage and started, my own stuff, and realized it's usually 1 or 2 people. You're usually completely by yourself. I thought that there were going to be people that were seasoned, a lot more private practices out there to kind of catch the interns coming out of grad school and then support them. And you have a whole caseload, and you have maybe a salary, and you have benefits. And,
right.
You hear attorneys and doctors, they come out, they get quote unquote, a sign-on bonus. I thought that was going to be similar. I thought, people have take insurance on insurance panels. It's going to be this big, great thing. And it was a very hard, I call it my existential crisis moment. So,
for sure. And I think, unfortunately, that is the truth and the nature of the beast, is it's very far and few between that there's a practice that has it down and is doing so well that they actually have cases to give, clients to see. Because ultimately, in private practice, we're in business. It's put therapy to the side, we're in business. And most of us, unless we have a business degree, which rarely most therapists have, is you're actually creating a business to put therapy into. Right. Mm-hmm. And so you have to create all of that, honestly, yourself, especially as a solopreneur. So it is one of those hard things. And, I feel sad a lot of times when people still have that illusion of, oh, well, no, I have someone, they said they're going to give me cases. And, I ask, well, what is their marketing like? What is their advertising? How many clients are they bringing in? How many clients are they referring on a consistent basis? Because it is an illusion. And sometimes I think some well-intentioned clinicians who have somewhat of an established practice might set up other folks for failure as well. Wanting and desiring to grow their practice, or maybe they did something advertising-wise that brought in a lot of clients, and they want to give those clients, but it's not a consistent thing. And then the intern or the unlicensed person or the person just starting in private practice is then left with, like you said, I thought I was going to get all this support, and now I don't have clients, and now I have to go back to having a job. And I just want to say something about that. Is like, if you do have to go back to having a job or work part-time or whatever, it's just all part of the process. I know that when I left my company full-time, even though I had probably been seeing like 8 or 10 clients a week by then, to make ends meet, I actually was a part-time clinical director for a period of 6 months. And then my practice finally reached the 6-figure mark, and then I could leave all that behind and just, stay full-time practice. So, your journey is your journey, and it's okay. And you're learning along the way. And, and this is what we're sharing with you today. And Jessica's kind of sharing her journey. So share with us a little bit more, some of the other obstacles that you hit upon.
Well, 2 things that you just brought up about, it's your journey. And if you have to quit or you have to go into something else, don't let that kind of hinder you, but let it kind of just use it as a resting space to go forward. I remember sitting with one of my clinical supervisors, maybe 3 or 4 months after getting my registered intern, working for an agency, still working full-time at the law firm. And I was like, I don't want to do this. This sucks. Why is everybody else they have, salaries, and they have full-time caseloads, and they're going to get done with their hours in the 2 to 3 year mark. They have what I thought I wanted, this perception. And she asked me, if you could explain your career in 3 words, what would it be? And I was like, flexibility, stability, and variety. And I remember her saying, well, okay, so you're going to have to work on that, because some of those don't go together, right? Like, how do you have stability and flexibility and variety? Like, how would you connect those? So I actually ended up burning out after 3 or 4 months of agency work. And I totally quit. I quit. And I didn't think I was going to go back into mental health. I thought I was going to go back into the law field and go to HR, because why not? HR needs a psychology background. I started looking up certifications for that. And I think that 4 months really helped to define further what my purpose was and what I wanted to do when I went back into it. So that's when I decided, if I give this up, the number one thing I will feel is regret. So I decided that I was going to go back in and do exactly what I wanted to. The private practice, I was going to take it slow. I was going to build very slowly. Luckily, at the time, they didn't have the new law where there's a 5-year limit. So I decided, at the end of this, I want something there. I want this thing to be there, a private practice, something stable, something with various forms, doing podcasts, doing continuing education credits, and having, support in those areas. So that's what kind of jump-started that, going into private practice as an intern. I did start some of it during my grad program. So when we talk about the 5 ways or 5 things interns can do, one of them I always suggest is if you really are serious about doing private practice, go ahead and make it fun. Don't wait until the end and start your website, in grad school, but do it the right way. I did mine on, Weebly? And I thought, okay, I got a website. Cool. Let's go. And little did I know I was wasting my entire time. So if you have the time and the resources while you're in grad school, or before you jump out into trying to get hours and supervision, go ahead and start the foundation of your website. What would that look like? And who cares if you have to change it later? Get somebody that knows what they're doing with SEO. Get somebody that can help you get the foundation of it started, your online marketing started. Because I feel like that's one thing that interns can do. Just don't advertise yourself in the wrong ways, as in don't say that you're licensed when you're not. Make sure you say that you're a registered intern. You can have your own website. There's absolutely nothing that says that you can't. So those are some of the things that I started, and I think I share with other interns. just go for it.
Yeah, and what's cool about you is that you actually knew your niche. And one of the things that most people coming into business is it's the scarcity factor, right? I went through it. When I first went into practice, it was addictions, trauma, grief, children. I don't even know what else. So there was a lot of stuff going on. And then eventually I fell into couples work and niched down that way. And I love it. And I niched down even to affair recovery. And that's one of my things I'm most passionate about. But having a niche is really essential. And I love, Jessica, that you say, and I've, in my private conversations with people like one-on-one or in the Facebook groups and things like that is start now. But more so even kind of starting with a plan, like a direction, like sketch out some type of outline, right? Mm-hmm. But before you go to do your website is know your niche first, right? And if you're not exactly clear, this is where Kate and I love to help people, clinicians overall, is really get clear on their marketing messages, their ideal client. And actually we help you create the copy that you need for your website. And with what you're saying, Jessica, in regards to website, guys, when you do go into private practice, if you're just kind of taking the leap or getting ready to take the leap, it's a lot. It's a big undertaking. You're an expert in being a therapist. You're not an SEO expert. And I share this with you because I actually just today had a great call with Matt Milway of Unconditional Media. And he actually he took off an old plugin in my WordPress website, reinstalled the Yoast plugin, and we actually did a 45-minute tutorial with my assistant. So not something I'm going to be doing, not something I care to do. There's a lot to know, and Google is the overall arching kind of like big daddy of it all. And so when Google changes things, and if you're not sitting there studying that stuff, you're not going to stay up to date. So that's a huge thing. But obviously with you having a website, it's important to even get that up because you want longevity. Longevity is really important on the web. So when you are ready to launch in a practice, people will find you. So what else, Jessica? What else do you want to share?
Yeah, and so the website, it's something like I had niched mine, and so private practice is something that you're going to change, you're going to shift, you're going to niche, and then you're going to decide, you know what, I don't want to do that, I want to change, and it's okay. You'll still get calls for that niche, and you can take it all down, and you can put something else up, and exactly. It's fine. I'm actually now that I'm bringing others on under me. I'm having to redo my website, which I outsourced to somebody because, like you said, it's constantly changing, and I don't want to deal with it. It hurts my brain, and we're therapists, and I'd much rather study therapy stuff. So, but now we're doing the website in a way that would fit multiple therapists. And then my niche is going to be, kind of in the website, but it's going to be in a place that will just show up when people search for those niche words. Mm-hmm. So just the website stuff, that's something that you can go ahead. You could get started. Business cards, you want to get your name out there. You want people to know who you are. You can have simple business cards with a phone number. You want to try to get the phone ringing. That way you can kind of see how difficult it really is to get the phone to ring, and have fun with it. And don't feel like you have to have a lot of pressure. Just say, okay, I'm going to try this. And if it doesn't work, okay, let me see. So that you can know if private practice is really something that you want to do or not. It's not easy, but it is doable. So.
And I know that you had a thought about financial options for new beginners. Tell us a little bit about that.
So getting started in private practice is a lot of financial undertaking, right? You have rent, you have liability insurance, you have all of the stuff ethically and clinically that we have to focus on. But in the business is going to need, 30% of your income for taxes or things like that. I have student loans. I don't have a lot of support with family. Nobody went to college before me. And so student loans, I have federal and I have private. Going into business has been extremely difficult because I'm also the first in my family that has had a business. So a lot of times they don't understand, well, why are you spending money to make money? And it's kind of hard to explain that. But when you have student loans, make sure that you're, looking at some options, financial options in that aspect, put them in forbearance if you have to, refinance them if you have to, get the interest rate down. They have the federal loan programs where you can do income-based. So if you're getting started in private practice, that kind of helps so that you're not feeling like you're suffocating and trapped. Some other financial options to look at are if you're trying to start a private practice, make sure expenses are low in the beginning. Work with what you have where you are in the moment. If you can look into people that are subleasing their space, they rent per hour, they rent per day. I've seen so many interns that illusion of I can do this, everybody else is doing it, they're having success, without that success being really defined or understood what it looks like behind the scenes. They jump in and they sign leases for $1,500 a month right off the bat. And that can be, very
make or break.
Yeah, because if you're signing a lease for that much for a year, what's going to happen? The first year of any business is you're lucky if you make money sometimes. And the third year is when you start to hit that plateau. You either make it or you break it in any business, not just private practice. So my heart goes out when I hear those stories because you want to help, you want to be there and support them. So I think knowing what the financial options are, knowing that you don't have to go into a year lease, you can do month to month, you can do, pay by the hour, you can have the flexibility and variety, you can try different locations even, and leaning on your financial support those ways.
Yeah. And one point, like when you say like you can even start when you're in college and stuff like that, like one of the things, again, Kate and I have done a ton wrong. And that's why we do what we do, because we're passionate about therapists building and growing their dream practice in a way that allows them to be in the world doing the work that they love. And, one of the things I definitely did not do, I didn't have a marketing plan. And the other thing that we always talk about is really creating a lifestyle business first. So what that means is grabbing, going onto Word, printing out like a month, right? And looking at the calendar and deciding how it is that you want your business to be, what hours you want to work, what days, how many weeks do you want to have off, and really crunching some numbers, but also, just getting really clear on starting to save for marketing, because marketing and practice outside of taxes is your biggest expense in life, usually, but having a marketing plan. So when you are ready to hit the ground running is you actually have some money to put towards marketing. And that's really, really important, whether it's networking events or things like that, or if you're doing AdWords or other forms of advertising or paying people to help you get off and running, it's really essential. Mm-hmm. So that's just like another added thing as I kind of reflect on my journey. So great talking points. So I know we kind of started off talking about if you are an unlicensed clinician is knowing your rights and laws in your state. So make sure that you check that out. We talked about financial options for new beginners. Jess was talking a lot about, looking at your student loans is what can you do with that. You're not going to be able to take a loan out if you never had a business. That's not going to happen. Usually you're required 2 years of actually loan statements being in business. So if you're going and expanding, yeah, maybe. And one of the things I really like, Jessica, you always talk about, and we as well, is the evolution, right? And you and I, even before we hopped on the podcast, is that in business, there's this, constriction and expansion, and that happens, and that's okay. And so your practice, like Jessica said, will evolve. If you have a niche already, fantastic. You are way ahead of the game. But if you don't, and you really want some help, that's where Kate and I can definitely help you. And we'll add to the show notes page the link to our coaching in regards to that. And then starting a website. Really important. Website is always a non-negotiable when it comes to practice or any business, because where do we always first look? Google. Yeah. So that gives you instant credibility. If you don't have a website, think about yourself as a consumer. You even wonder if the business is legit. Mm-hmm. So awesome tips, Jessica. What do you want to make sure our listeners take away from your message today?
I want them to take away, just do it. Just do it.
In the words of Nike.
In the words of Nike, just go for it. There's going to be times where you fall flat on your face. Like I had the Weebly website, for example, and it wasn't really working very well. And you can try different things. You can start. I always suggest start with all of the free resources. There's tons of free directories out there. Go ahead and get on all of those. Start with free and then expand once you have X amount of clients or calls. then put the money somewhere like Google AdWords or something like that. Don't feel like you have to, like you said, take out a gigantic loan and pay for all of it all up at once and run. You can start with where you are and with what you have. My private practice, talking about financial options too, I was out on my own in the beginning. I had a licensed person on site, but it was just a little too much for me as an intern to try to do everything and learn and all of that. So I chose to go under someone, and they had a practice already started. We did like the 60-40 split. I had a certain amount that I was getting, but I was still doing all of my own advertising and marketing. And so like you said, making sure, what are the different practices offering? So the rights of an intern in private practice, you still have the right to advertise yourself. Mm-hmm. You still have, even though you're with an agency or a company, you can still market and advertise yourself. You can still take phone calls on your own. You can still, do things within the bounds of your contract with the agency, of course, but you are still independent if you are a contractor, which most interns are contractors. So looking at, that you have more power as an intern than I think a lot of people believe or think. We look at those ahead of us and for guidance, but sometimes we don't realize that we have our own strengths and powers, that we can go out there and advertise and do things on our own too.
Yeah. And that hits on a really good point is, unfortunately, so Kate and I also teach the supervision course, and we're supervisors here in the state of Florida. And so we're constantly in the laws, the rules, and the ethics. And a lot of people look to us for the answer, the true answer, because there's a lot of misinformation. And so, not only having one good supervisor, but also mentors and coaches that really can help and guide you along the process. And I know that one of the places that you can ask a lot of questions is actually in Jessica's Facebook called Beginning Counselors of Florida. So if you're a Florida-based intern or if you're beginning in counseling, this is a great resource for you. I know there's other awesome supervisors. I know Kathleen Hall's in there and some other folks that really give solid answers that you guys need to know. And then you also have some blogs and resources for beginning counselors on your website, which we'll also go ahead and put that into the show notes page. So, Jess, thank you so much for just sharing your journey, being willing to just be vulnerable and share the process, some of the things that you were disillusioned by and some of the obstacles and the things that you learned. I'm sure this is valuable to our startup nation. And my fingers are crossed that actually once we finally stop this recording, 3 times a charm will actually be. We had
recorded.
Yes, dogs were quiet. Nothing happened. No hailstorms, tornadoes, or anything like that, or sickness. So, Startup Nation, we hope you have an amazing day. We hope that you join us next week. And as Jessica is talking about building and growing her practice, maybe she'll check out this podcast as well. It's going to be with Maureen Warbach. She's going to be talking about the 2-pronged approach to building a group practice through marketing. She's pretty much a badass, I have to say. When we actually did the podcast with her, we were very inspired by what she had shared and how she grew 2 group practices in regards to full fee practices and how she utilizes all of the therapists to really shine and kind of present their niche out there in the world. So really great podcast. You're definitely going to want to listen to that. And Startup Nation, as you've listened to this podcast, I'm sure there's a few colleagues of yours or friends in the field that you said, I really think they need to hear this podcast. So we're going to encourage you to share it. Send them a text, forward them this podcast so that they can get the ninja tips and the little golden nuggets that we had shared today. So we look forward to having you join us next time. And we hope you guys have an inspired day. Thank you for allowing us to continue to inspire you from startup to mastery. See you later, Startup Nation.
Thanks for joining us on The Private Practice Startup. Visit theprivatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, free trainings, attorney-approved private practice paperwork, and so much more.